Welcome to the Nano podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernlin, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of nano companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of nano-cap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi, everyone. This week, we have Morgan Lekstrom, the interim executive chairman and co-founder of Streamex, stock ticker STEX. Streamex is an institutional-grade gold-backed stablecoin with yield. Morgan, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, looking through your past life, Morgan, you've worked in basically every country under the sun. You're originally from Canada, but did you just get into like mining and ore and that just like right out of high school, or then it just took you random places? Or tell me a little bit more about your backstory.
Yeah, no. So where I grew up was a small farming town, and it's in northern British Columbia. So I kind of went through the whole identification of what do I want to do? Do I want to be an oil and gas guy? Do I want to be a farm kid? And thank God I was an athlete, and it took me many places. From there, really went into engineering project management, and it took me around the world, like you just said. I started off in mining, not ore mining, just mining and engineering project management. I spent a lot of years in that actual mining sphere. Building mines around the world, or being a part of the build. It takes a team and it takes a village. But that really led me into the capital markets later on in life. And I say later on in life because I'm older than I look, apparently.
So to tell me a little bit more about that, were you just the young whippersnapper who was excited for anything, and so that's why you'd go off to Mongolia or Ghana? Or were you trying to climb the corporate ladder? Or were you just saying, hey, this is a job, this is just what you got to do? I just would love to hear a little bit more, because like you're saying, you're from small town, northern British Columbia, and then all of a sudden to be told you got to be in Ghana, and then next 6 months later, you got to be in Mongolia. A normal person, that would fry their brain.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that quick. It was a couple of years in Mongolia, a couple of years in Ghana. I took a mentality at a young age that is probably a little different, or different than all the rhetoric you're hearing nowadays online about go make money, go make this, go make that. I looked at it for more of I need to get the experience. So I just took things for experience. I'm like, look, how much are you gonna pay me? Cool, that's great. I can live off that, but I want the experience of living in this country and understanding that facet of the industry. And that's really where it led up to, was gaining different cultural background, cultural experience, understanding all the different facets of the industry. And then you get to get out and make the money one day. I'm still not there yet, but we're going to, I swear, one day.
So yeah, you're working in all these different countries. You're starting to go after precious materials that people are trading for around the world. When you first started hearing about stuff like Bitcoin, did it start ringing bells immediately that it's like, okay, this is exactly kind of the digital version of what I've been up to?
I mean, I've got a different philosophy on it. I think less of a digital version of what I've been up to, because we actually, in the mining side, you have to find it, you have to measure it, you have to finance it, you have to build it, you have to operate it. So it requires huge ecosystem to work that's worldwide. The fundamental thing about mining is it is true to every component of life. I call it critical for life. Like, you need mining to make any of this possible. You want to find more you want to mine more Bitcoin, you want to come up with more cryptocurrencies. Well, you need copper, silver, you need all the underlying materials to do that. So everyone kind of pits these industries against each other, and I think they're more synergistic than we realize. People say, well, Bitcoin's digital gold. I can call anything digital gold. It's digitized. People want it. It's gold. No, it's not gold, right? Gold's a $20 trillion TAM market, trades $230 billion a day. It's used in industrial processes. It's used in manufacturing. It's also used as storage of wealth. Now, that being said, Bitcoin can act as a storage of wealth. I think it still has to go through a massive adoption curve that is struggling with. When you're talking about like financial instruments, gold's been around for so long that it's just a trusted, it's tried, it's true. It's in the ground. It's shiny. We like shiny objects.
Tell me more about that then. So it wasn't really Bitcoin that got you kind of excited into crypto and all that, since you're a gold bug at heart. So then what was it? Was the just like people using stable coins more and more, and you thought the stable coins could actually be backed by something with a little bit more yield? Or was it new legislation and that kind of made it so that crypto and stable coins could be adopted that much easier? Or kind of what got you excited about the idea of Streamex in the first place?
Well, look, so when we founded the company, it was Henry and myself, and I'm coming from the mining background, right? The traditional finance. I was involved in starting a gold company as a founder, and that's doing well and taking off, and we're going to start building a gold mine in Canada. And I found Henry, and we're just sitting there talking. I'm like, explain this Web3 blockchain thing to me, because I'm stuck in Web 1 here. What's going on? And he explained it to me in a way that I'm like, wow, there's so many integrations that can happen in the finance space, so many things that can go from real world activity into an actual financial tool that we've never been able to do under the current kind of old school way of doing things. So the way I looked at it is it's more TradFi and DeFi merge instead of TradFi beats out DeFi or DeFi beats out TradFi. I just think they're tools for each other, right? Traditional finance doesn't move quick. DeFi moves quick, but there's so many avenues there. So I was really enamored by how blockchain worked. I was enamored by like the amount of young people coming into this going, hey, this is the future. This is the future. And we all know that, like I'm in my 40s and we all know that I know when I was growing up, it was internet, right? And all the older generations, that'll never take off. That's a fake thing. So you do have to listen to the generation coming up saying, this is what we want. We want to be able to trade like this. We want transparency. We want this to happen. So that's where kind of the Streamex idea was born out of. It had its many different iterations. And, as a founder, you probably almost go bankrupt 4 or 5 times. And you sit there going, are we going to make payroll? We're not paying ourselves. We're paying everyone else. I know Henry and I didn't pay ourselves for the first number of years, actually until recently. But that is the kind of fundamental of a change, right? That's where we saw with Streamex, we can make a difference in that commodity and in that real world asset space. And we started it at a time where most people were looking at us like we're nuts. They were like, yeah, real world assets a word. People are doing it. And we're like, no, commodities need to be traded differently. We need to make financial instruments that complement TradFi with DeFi. And that's where we are now.
And so when you were first starting it, was the initial problem just like finding investors who were going to like raise that first chunk of cash? Or was it more of like a messaging thing where you had to kind of like reinvent the wheel and be like, okay, we really need to break this down to a 5th grade level, because coming in, explaining yield compared to a stable coin, compared to how it's hard asset based, if you're not ready for those kind of sentences to be strung together, it could take you a bit to kind of get your head around it. And then how do you sell to someone who doesn't get it, right? So like, how did you first kind of structure that?
When Streamex first started, we were looking at it like royalties and streams from mining companies. We want to fractionalize them. We want to make them available to people in all different countries. And then it evolved from there, right? It took shape. And the first capital that we really received in were from 2 people. One is a good friend of ours, can't name names, but I'm pretty sure she pulled money off of her mortgage and was like, look, I believe in this. I believe in what you guys are doing. We're like, okay, like we're going to tell you here, this is a startup. You could lose everything. Da, 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 da. She goes, nope, you guys are going to do it. I think you're ahead of your curve. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. So we raised money from really friends and family. We no VCs. We had no VC rounds. And we brought in really good investors like Frank Justra and Sean Rusin. And then the rest of us just put our money in. So we bootstrapped this thing. And the great thing about it was all of our developers and our team saw the vision. So they would mainly get paid in shares because they're like, look, we'll do this for shares because if this works, it really works. If it doesn't, what are we out? We got some technology. We can do something.
So we danced around it, but in your own words, what is Streamex today?
Excuse me. Streamex is the ecosystem for taking real world activities that generate yield in the commodity space and in other spaces and turning those into tokenized assets that can be traded as a security. So what that means is we are taking items that normally haven't been seen by the security space and making it so that they can be held in ETFs and IRAs and RIAs by asset managers. So we're really taking something that blockchain was built to do. It was built to be that transmission point, and we're doing that. We can really, we're the tokenization platform. We can do anything. We can do any real world asset. We've built all that back end tech, all the legal framework, but we built it to work within the current regulatory environment, not requiring any other additions. We're extremely well capitalized. We have $40+ million in the bank. And so when I say that, people go, well, is that a lot? Is it not? We have years and years and years of runway. So when you talk about it takes time for adoption, hey, you're right. Things take time to adopt. But when they do adopt, you see a massive J curve. And we just launched our first asset. We're expecting that curve to happen fairly quick. Then we'll launch more and more and more assets behind it. But Streamex is the ecosystem that all of that lives. It's the revenue generating.
And so for the gold portion of it, so I understand the idea of I give you all enough money to purchase, say, an ounce of gold. You purchase an ounce of gold on my behalf and issue me the corresponding value in stablecoin. So it's backed 1-to-1. Where does the yield come from?
So imagine this. If you're an industrial manufacturer, almost every industrial manufacturer in the world uses commodities, right? Whether it's gold, silver, copper, palladium, platinum, whatever it is. And when they do that, they buy it, they put it in their warehouse. They have an entire finance department that does all these hedging, all those financial metric models. And the way they buy that is they pulled off their line of credit. So to simplify that down, we said, well, hold on. Those prices can be a little bit volatile. So if you bought at $5,000 gold and part of your manufacturing and now it's at $2,500, well, you're going to lose some money there, right? Your capacity to build is going to go down. So we said, well, hold on. People really want exposure to gold. They want exposure to silver. The only way they can do that really other than buying the physical is through the ETFs and some other, different ways of doing it, but mainly the ETFs. We said, well, hold on. Those ETFs, you have to pay to hold between 0.4 and if we allow people to put the money in, get that 1-to-1 back into gold, but then we make it an operating model for these industrial manufacturers. We lend it to them in ounces, or they get lent in ounces, they get paid back in ounces, and it compounds in more ounces of gold. So more GLDY, more token. So I like to say it's the only place outside of the mining industry where in mining you dig it up, you get gold, you sell it. As GLDY, you start with gold, you compound in gold. So you get more gold without having all the mining components to it. But it makes it a useful commodity. It's no longer Warren Buffett's pet rock. It's now a useful commodity, and you own it through the whole life cycle. It is yours. You can call it. You can do anything. You can say, hey, I want it back, which most people wouldn't. They'd just say, hey, I want the money. So that is all completely insured, easy to use, and that's what the ecosystem has put together.
And so when you talk about adoption, you were mentioning that like once it catches on, it's going to catch on type of thing. What, not that you necessarily need something that's dramatic, but what type of black swan event would you say you predict that is going to be the thing? Is it going to be that the PPI and such numbers this last week are high and it's going to continue being high? Inflation's coming back. Gold's the place to be. Do you see it from the point of view of more and more pensions say, hey, we hold gold anyways. Why would we want to just hold gold that has yield? Where do you see like the major lever kind of for the next foreseeable future where you go, okay, this is going to take us from 40 million in assets under management to 4 billion pretty quick?
Yeah, that is the interesting question. It's not just a single event. I think it's a multi-pronged event. It doesn't need to be just one. It can be multiple. One, you mentioned very well. It's the asset managers saying, hey, we want to allocate it to gold. Let's go buy the ETFs, or let's buy physical, but you're going to have to pay storage costs. The way we've brought the product out, it integrates into those channels, those IRA and RIA channels, those ETF channels. So if you're an asset manager or an ETF, you're sitting there going, I charge AUM fees just to be able to hold this. If you put your client into GLDY, not only do they get the gold exposure, they get the yield behind it. Once all those channels are in place, which we're working on right now, I expect exponential growth because it just takes a little bit of time, right? Once you get the one ETF in saying, hey, I've got a better product than the rest of you, because that's what will happen. You'll go from an ETF model of you have to pay to hold it to an ETF model of, hey, we can pay you. we can pay you a dividend. We don't need to do futures. We don't need to do derivatives. They still can hedge it, but now they're directly exposed. And that's what the security instrument does for it. And that's what most crypto people try to avoid. They try to avoid the securities. But in reality, we took the approach that eventually everything will be regulated, because you can't have an unregulated world that will just fall apart.
100%. And so what other physical assets are we looking at maybe tokenizing? You don't have to give away the whole roadmap, but I see the hot thing lately is like H100s and data centers, and being able to figure out a way to tokenize that, and then also be able to hedge what the costs in the future and all that type of thing. What other things are you looking at now that you've built out the infrastructure for something like this?
Well, we could really do anything, but we're focused on commodities just because the size of the TAM of the commodity market is exponential. It's, you're talking tens of trillions of dollars, right? Or hundreds of trillions of dollars. So that market is held widely across a lot of the financial advisors and financial institutions. So we're going to give them a product there that they can use. But we could tokenize anything. You're right. We could tokenize real estate. We could tokenize data centers. We're a public company, so you get a bit of a different light through audit, through accountability. So from that standpoint, we have had people approach us. Can you do this? Can you tokenize a data center? You can. It's about creating a value-added product. You can tokenize something, but does it add value to that product? Does someone actually want it on that end? Because I think the big fad right now is I want to tokenize everything. I'm going to tokenize my chair in my house. For what? Just paid a bunch of money to do nothing. To tokenize a real world asset, there's a lot of work that goes into it, from an audit standpoint, from the technology, the smart contracts, all of that, and then all the cybersecurity behind it. So, a lot of people come out and say they can tokenize something, but when it gets into the point of, hey, it pays yield, it becomes a security, and now you're into a very different ecosystem, which Streamex has.
Yeah, so just to kind of double click on that. So something like gold is something that big corporations, industrial thing need and want. But it'd be a lot harder for you to do something like, say, like corn, where is it something that like with it being something that is can expire. Does that matter?
No,
Okay.
With corn, like I actually spent an odd amount of time in the grain industry, and you're talking about trading futures. That's mainly how the corn and the grain industry trades, on futures and future contracts and delivery contracts. I think you'd be more looking at, tokenizing rental spaces, tokenizing, data center energy output or inputs. Yeah. You could tokenize energy outputs of nuclear power plants and other power plants. There's a whole world that tokenizing something like that makes it instantly transmutable. You got something else, right? Like you can instant trading, instant liquidity from it. Those are really cool markets and networks I'm really interested in, and I think Streamex is. But right now, it's really focused on getting GLDY right, then moving into silver, copper, royalties and streams, oil and gas. We'll be developing that whole market. But while we're also developing the secondary market for these activities, which you'll see very soon from us, actually, a permission. We just started speaking about it, but a permissioned, decentralized exchange for these securities, which will be one of the first in the world, or if not the first.
And would you be using your own layer one for that, or what? How would you be doing that marketplace?
No, I don't think we're going to develop our own layer one.
Okay, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. No, my co-founder is more the Web3 crypto fellow, and I'm more the traditional finance guy. But I can promise you that the product that we're going to be coming out with on the trading side is going to be very, very exciting for people. And that will be another revenue source for Streamex outside of the current revenue sources we already have.
Well, it's all very exciting, all on the cutting edge. Morgan, as we wrap up here, if listeners want to learn more about Streamex, what you're doing, GLDY, where should I send my audience?
Just streamex.com, streamex.com. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow each of us, follow Henry a lot. He likes to post on our Twitter, X, all the time. LinkedIn.
Crypto lives on X.
Yeah. Crypto lives on X. You can totally follow us there with our Streamex account. And even reach out too. Like, we're happy to answer calls. We answer calls all the way up to about midnight. Trust me. I'm usually on a lot of them.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute, therefore, by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast Express disclaims all liability for any individual's